Hello, everyone. I'm Melory Johnson, 25-year beauty veteran, consultant, and strategist. Welcome to Pretty Equity, where we tackle the real issues facing beauty founders and investors and bring you the answers from the experts behind the deals. Today, we're talking about one of the most critical and most misunderstood pillars of the industry, product safety. Every cosmetic on the market is supposed to have been verified for safety, but not everyone does. So in today's episode, I want to expose how safety substantiation and product risk assessment underpin every credible cosmetic brand and why investors can't treat them as check-the-box items. So with me today, I have Triin, who is a cosmetic safety assessor. This whole safety assessor situation is new to me. And cosmetic safety assessors are not something that we find here in the US, although it is part of compliance in the EU. The reason I want to talk to you today is because when we have beauty brands, starting out in the US, at some point or another, they need to think about broadening their horizons and extending out to the EU. Or they'll come to me right from the very beginning with plans that they want to go both US and countries in the EU. With that in mind, I like to make sure that everybody is set up correctly from the beginning. And safety is something that people never talk about. In fact, it's something that most people don't even think about. So before I start asking you specific questions, I want to, if you can just give the audience a little bit of information about what you actually do. What is a cosmetic safety assessor? What is it that you do? Why do you do what you do? And just a little bit about what is safety assessment. Just as a little bit of context. So I've literally had people say to me, why do we need to bother about safety? I mean, the guys in the factory should be the factory's problem. And I'm thinking, huh? But it dawned on me that in their minds, safety to them means safety of the people making the product, right? Safety in the lab, safety in the on the production floor. You know what I mean? I don't think it occurred to them that safety could mean something from a cosmetic and particularly a go-to-market point of view. So, saying that, if you can throw in, what I mean, what is a safety assessor? What is it that you do? And, and why is it important for investors, founders to understand that you exist?
Yeah, okay. So at least in Europe, safety assessor is, as you called, some people think about cosmetic safety. And when we start with what is safety, we and European regulation and actually in about is consumer safety. So the product that they consume is safe for them. And it's not about GMP or the like manufacturing facility safety in that sense. And when we talk about cosmetic regulations all over the world, it is basically population safety regulation in a broader sense.
Okay.
And what safety assessors do and what I do is that we are it could be thought of like it's like a check the box thing, but it's a mandatory check the box thing. And if you get it done wrong or like in a bad level, then you will definitely have some problems down the line. Maybe not in the first or second or even third year, but there will be problems. I've seen them and they will come. Anyway, safety. Yeah, so it means product safety. It means that if you have a consumer using your products, it's safe for them. It doesn't give them any like problems or whatever can happen with your skin. And we have specific toxicological like guidelines how we measure and calculate safety and how we look into the products. What safety assessors do is we basically ask all of the data there is to know about the product, from formulation to down to like label and claims and how it's manufactured, and we look at all of it. It's not only that we look into ingredients and just check against or like European regulations, like is there some sort of restriction or not. So we look into everything there is to know about the product.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So that's good to know because this is pretty all encompassing. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
pretty robust assessment that you're doing. So from a founder or an investor standpoint, what at the due diligence level, you know what I mean? Because anytime that I'm working with a client, you know what I mean, we want to start from the beginning. We want to set ourselves up right from the beginning because it becomes costly when you have to go back and change. So right from, concept, we want to make sure that we're set up properly, whether it's to be able to scale up, whether it is to understand the formula and the ingredients and make sure they're compliant in all the markets that we think we want to go into, or even are considering in the future. You know what I mean? So from a safety standpoint, what are the things that they should be putting on their due diligence list? What are the things that they should be looking at early to make sure that they're not
Mhm.
running into problems later on down the line?
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. First of all, I think you would have to know what markets you want to enter, because every market has their own regulation, and cosmetic as a category is not the same in every market, because as you know, in US you have SPF products which are OTC products, but here we have them under the cosmetic regulations. So that's different. And when European brands, let's say, want to go to US, there's like differences and they have to adapt to the US regulations, which are different. So at first, I think you would have to decide on the markets you want to go into, and you have to see under which category the product is actually regulated. And then, of course, it's you would have to probably find a regulatory consultant for each of the markets, or maybe you can find some bigger company who knows various regulations, and so you could do that. But if we go into ingredients, then again, you have to see whether there are restrictions on various markets and just work around that. I know that actually brands reformulate for different markets because it's much more like easier sometimes than just doing one formula for all markets. So,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
now with
yeah, it's interesting that you say that because there's two ways to look at it. We can either formulate correctly from the beginning. When I say correctly, formulate so that we can, be diverse enough to go into all, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
An example is,
mhm,
say, kojic acid, right?
mhm,
Can we find an alternative that does the same work?
mhm,
As that key ingredient and or is that active and replace it so that we can go into all markets because there's a lot of time and investment that goes into R&D. So to have to constantly be redoing that R&D because now all of a sudden you've realized, oh no, we can't go to UK because we have this ingredient and that's okay here, but not okay. Or we can't
Mhm.
go into, you know what I mean, the Asian market, which is another whole animal. So yeah, so from a safety standpoint, it's good to know that all the work that we're doing on the back end on our side anyway is the kind of stuff that you're looking
Mhm.
for when you do your assessments. You know what I mean? So as long as we continue
Yeah,
to
yeah.
follow our protocol from our end and make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row, we should be, in good standing on your end once it comes, across your desk. Um,
But I think going
some,
back to it, if
yeah,
you
yeah,
if you start with your product concept, you know what type of product you want to develop, and you know which markets you want to enter, then you just have to basically make an Excel file and see what types of ingredients are okay for this product concept, and then for my from my perspective, I suggest especially small startup brands to start working with regulatory people from the beginning
100%.
of product
Hmm.
development, because if they think that I have so many cases where they are like, okay, we are ready to launch. Please, we need CPSRs. We need the cosmetic product safety reports.
Yeah.
And when I ask all of the data and documents, and most of it is missing, by the way. So I'm like, you have half the work
Yeah.
ahead of you.
Yeah,
So
no, no, no. I
it's
mean,
good
listen,
to.
documentation is another conversation we can have because, even from a regulatory standpoint, the amount of time that we waste on documents that we don't have or documents that don't
Yeah,
exist, that can put you back months. You know what I mean? Trying to catch up on all the docs that you don't
absolutely.
have. So I can imagine for you, there's got to be quite a robust list of documents that you require just to get started
Mhm.
on your assessment. So that
Yes.
would be your regulatory docs, that would be your R&D, your
Mhm.
formulation documentation. What else is
What are the documentation and data we need? So yeah, we need the formulation. We need to see that the formulation is stable. So we need stability testing report, which is like the one that can set you back at minimum 3 to 6 months, basically, if you don't have stability data. So, and it's a new product. So we need micro testing challenge, which is preservative efficacy testing. If you have some sort of let's say fancier type of claims or stronger claims where you want to give out some numbers or some time periods, well, you would need clinical backing for these types of claims. So and clinical testing takes time. Um, so next, what we need are raw material data, basically all of the documentation that comes with raw material, with packaging. We want to see that the packaging is clean enough to use in a cosmetic product, because it depends where you get your where you get your raw material and packaging, because they can be contaminated. Then what we need are, of course, the manufacturing facility. We want to see a GMP declaration that your products are manufactured to the GMP standards, because you can have the best formula, your microbiological stability can be the best, but if the GMP is not there and the manufacturing is shady, then your product will not hold up to that problems.
does ISO
So
does
next.
ISO certification fall under that as well? Is that something you look for too?
Actually, at least in Europe, because we have small manufacturers also, so you do not have to have ISO certification for your GMP, but you have to state and you have to be able to show to governmental regulatory people that you are doing according to
Mm,
GMP guidelines,
mm,
basically.
mm. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So,
Cool.
talking of, all right, so let's look at let's just pivot to the actual report, right? Under under the scrutiny of an assessor, what does a failure look like?
Yeah. But I think there might be a difference in how various safety assessors work. I try to be as supportive as possible. So I find that it's basically pointless for me to give out a report with like not safe for the general like user or consumer. Uh, because when I see that there are things missing, I just ask for the things and then start working. There's no point in starting the work because it takes a lot of time. And then just state that this is missing. So I think it comes down to the safety assessor, whether they are like the ones who just make the report and say that, you didn't pass and you come back with more data. Or in my case, I just try to be supportive. With my clients, I always do like the first consultation to basically a gap analysis before we even start working.
Right,
And then I
right.
try to just tell them like what types of data, documentation, everything they need. If they are the startup kind of people who don't actually know anything about the industry, then we will do an action plan for them so that when they actually arrive at the regulatory phase, everything is there to like go on smoothly.
So, is it a good idea
So I
to
have
be
this like strategy.
I didn't hear, repeat the last
Oh,
bit that you just said?
okay, okay. Yeah. I try to help with like the development strategy and everything that they need to do because mostly they don't know that they have to do stability or micro testing or claim substantiation. So we start with basically what do you want to say about the product? What do you want to put into it to like have the claims substantiated? And then we just yeah develop an action plan like, okay, you need to do this type of testing, you need to do this type of claim substantiation testing, and then they have all done.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So, what it would make logical sense to me then that you would be somebody that I would want to have a conversation with right from the very beginning. Like when I'm setting
Mhm.
everything up, you know what I mean? My intention is to do it right the first time, right? What they say,
Mhm.
measure twice, cut once. So,
Yeah.
let's do everything correctly the first time so that, because my job, like I'm always saying to people, I'm like the captain of a ship, right? You hire me to get your ship from port A to port B, right? And I've got to know where are the
Mhm.
storms, you know what I mean? What's on the radar? I have to also hire the crew. I have to man the ship. Do you know what I'm saying? So I have to know exactly what
Mhm.
crew I need. I need to know because I'm only the captain. I can't be the
Mhm.
engineer. I can't do, everything else that goes on in the ship. I just have to make sure we don't sink on the way to the end. So, so part of that is due diligence. Part of that is, getting everything together and ready. So, because like I said, we don't deal with cosmetic assessors, safety assessors here in the
Mhm.
US. Um, I'm just thinking it seems to me that a good idea would be to meet with someone like you ahead of time while we're still preparing and while we're still in the planning phase, because, there's nothing worse than having a launch date planned and this is your launch date. But because there were a whole lot of things that we didn't see coming, there were a whole lot of things around corners that we didn't even think about. Do you know what I'm saying? Our launch is now delayed by a month, 2 months,
Mhm.
6 months. That's happened. You know what I mean? Where we didn't, it wasn't planned properly from an ingredient standpoint, and our longest lead time, is 200, 300 days. Did anybody
Mhm.
think about scale up when they came up with this formula? Just saying. But but the point is, you know what I mean? It does seem to me like a logical thing to do would for me to reach out, hey, Triin, we got a new product coming onto the market. Let's have a conversation now before we say, okay, we're entering the market. What do you need to do your assessment? So,
Yeah.
well,
That
that's
that's
good to
actually
know. Go
the
ahead.
easy way. Yeah, that's actually the easy and the fast way
Yes. Oh, you're frozen.
with your yeah. Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
We we
basically
we
this
we
is
keep we keep freezing here. It's I don't know what's going on. But all right, so let's just move on to some hot topics. Okay,
yes.
so all the buzz in the news lately has been on the whole SPF debacle. And
Hmm.
the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you know, when you send your product or your reports or whatever it is to a lab, right? Your formulas to be tested, you send your documentation. The reports that you receive, people just take for granted. Right? You sent your
Hmm.
stuff to be tested. It comes back. These are the testing reports, and we take it for granted. At no point in time does anybody stop and say, "Oh, do you think we need a second opinion?" Right? They're just taking what they see for granted. And so when we look at what landed up happening with SPF, where people just assumed, "Oh, well, the report said SPF 50, so they've stuck SPF 50 on their label, sent it out." It turns out it's actually an SPF 20, or their SPF 30 is an SPF 10. It's these are the kinds of things that lead to disasters like recalls,
Hmm.
you know, brand reputation being tarnished. There's a lot of stuff that you can recover from, and there's stuff you cannot recover from. So
Exactly.
how, from an assessor standpoint, things like preservative systems, things like SPF, things like ingredient combinations, right? What ingredients can and can't go together, right? These are obviously the kinds of things that we work on from the beginning, but not everybody is going to be meeting me from the beginning. Not everybody is going to come to me from the beginning. Sometimes they're already in it and we already have a disaster.
Hmm.
So, from an assessor standpoint, these are complicated issues. Preservative systems. Again, you're getting reports from labs, right? You're getting the documentation. You mentioned your PET, your preservative efficacy testing. You're getting those reports. I mean, you're not taking just everything you see for granted. So, from an assessor's standpoint, what are you looking at? What are you looking for?
Hmm. Well, when we talk about SPF testing and the methods that were generally used, we now have, at least in Europe, we have a new ISO method, which removes the human body from it, basically. But SPF testing in itself is very tricky, I think. And as a safety assessor, well, one thing is that the documents we get, of course, um, we have to read through them and see if there are any mistakes. But at some level, I also have to just believe and trust that what the report says is what it actually is. With SPF testing, um, I think in that case where what the course it adds another like level or budget line, but it would be beneficial to use maybe like two testing labs for that, or just do your due diligence a bit better, which is difficult if you don't know anything about testing and like you don't just understand anything, and the people next to you or in front of you are very like kindly explaining everything, but then they're not doing what they're explaining. So it
Yeah, you
is
know what?
difficult.
It's
It is,
Go ahead. Sorry,
yeah.
there was a gap. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's also difficult for safety assessors because we get the reports and we kind of have to trust
Yeah,
the
yeah,
reports.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'm sure also, you do this long enough, you start to recognize the labs. You know what I'm saying? You start to
Yeah,
recognize, because not all labs are created equally. We
of
know this,
course.
obviously, like you say,
Mhm.
from someone who's never been in the industry before. I mean, they wouldn't know, you know what I'm saying? But then
Mhm.
again,
Mhm.
this is my job. This is what I do. I make sure that you choose the right lab, that you choose the right
Mhm. Mhm.
CGMP facility, that you're choosing the right, for the need. But yeah, it was just, it was just interesting because there's so many of these things that we're seeing now. And I think, you and I spoke about it a little bit, a few minutes before we came on. About my pet peeve and with parabens. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because there's such, it's all this, this clean standards and paraben free and what I like to call chemophobia. This, this fear of
Mhm.
chemicals. Everybody wants all natural because, so I don't want chemicals. But, the problem is consumers don't really understand, you know what I mean? They don't understand chemistry or chemicals or, all natural versus, chemical, and so the poor parabens got run over in this so now where we're looking at an ingredient like a paraben where you can use such tiny 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 amounts to do the job, the massive job that it needed to do, in terms of preservative, and in terms of efficacy,
Mhm.
you're now using alternatives in such high levels because they just can't do the same kind of job that the paraben can do. You know what I mean? These are the kinds of things. So preservative systems always are a challenge, particularly in this era of, you know, chemophobia. I know that's not a term, but I just throw it out there
Well,
because.
yeah, basically, this is what you are describing is the clean beauty sector of the beauty market. Yeah, and I think parabens are in consumers' mind, it's a lost cause because the marketing against parabens
Mhm. I
has
know,
been so like huge
I
that
know.
I don't think we can come back to it,
No,
which
no,
is
I
sad.
don't. I don't. I don't. But the preservative systems do concern me because I have definitely
Mhm.
seen brands out there with really, really, and even OTC brands. You know what I mean? Even formulas
Mm.
that are technically OTC, where their preservative systems are they're just not robust enough. But their fear of chemicals and their fear of the clean standards, because a clean beauty doesn't mean anything other than beauty without, right? It just means a formula that does not have it's not that it's going to perform better. It's not that it's going to do a better job. It just means it doesn't have these ingredients in it. And the lists just keep getting
Yeah.
longer and longer and longer, which means that the formulators have smaller and smaller, choices that they've got to make work. The other
Mm.
day I was seeing somebody post something on LinkedIn about, there's a great new formula that has no preservative system. And I'm thinking, uh, 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 how's this gonna work? And they're
Yeah.
like, it's made in
Is
a
it
in a
waterless?
GMP facility that is, that is, what they say, it's sterile. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, if there's a first
Yeah.
thing, couple of things happening here. A GMP facility that's sterile, good luck with that. Okay, because when you do find them, I hope you have a budget that's, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
that they're even going to take your cosmetic, because normally, you're talking about companies that make eye drops and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Heavy pharmaceuticals. So good
Pharma.
luck with
Yeah.
that right there. Okay. Then you want to tell me that the customer's bathroom sink is sterile? Because what then happens when you open the product and you start using it? You want to tell me that even if it's an airless pump, that there's no bacteria getting in there at all? There is nothing protect. What about the shelf life? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how
Yeah.
far are we
Yeah.
going to go? It started with parabens and now it's going into preservative free. And I'm like, oh Lord, so from a safety standpoint, now that we understand what safety actually is, it doesn't mean where do I find the band-aids when we have a sliced finger on the production floor, safety means exactly what you were just saying and what you were describing. This is safe to use by a consumer. So, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Where do you see that trend going? I mean, are you starting
Um,
are you starting to notice like red flags when it comes to preservative systems?
yeah, well, we have the second in line, the phenoxyethanol, which is getting a bad reputation, at least here in Europe. People are talking like, oh, we don't like it anymore. Uh, but that's like the next best thing after parabens. Yeah, well, in my personal experience, it all comes down to educating the brand owners because they have been influenced by, and I'm sure freezed again. We freezed again, yeah? Okay. So, yeah, I think brand owners are influenced by other brands' messaging. And so they just start this cycle of saying the same stuff, basically. And it all comes down to just one-on-one talking about all of these things and until they understand. And I see my fellow like formulators around here, they are rebelling against the no preservative stuff because, well, at least if you have water in your product, there is no way that you are doing a preservative free, unless, of course, you have money and you go have a specific kind of airless packaging. Yeah,
Yeah,
and manufacturing
I was
facility,
gonna
then
say,
okay,
and
wait,
that's
I've seen these types of.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's not your
and like I
usual airless.
and I'm sure, Triin, that you see it all the time. I mean, when it comes to, CGMP and GMP facilities in general, I mean, that always seems to
Mhm.
be the point at which at least I start biting my nails. It's like, you know what I mean? What's good? We've done so well up until now. Now we're going to be putting it in the hands of the manufacturer, and you know what I mean? And obviously, they're not all
And stuff
created
always
equally,
happens.
I think, you know, there's a lot of human error that happens there. So the idea that you're now going to have a formula that's completely, you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
don't see how they're going to pass their stability testing. It's just it's a wonder
yeah,
to
they
me.
don't.
No,
Yeah, and
no,
they can't pass their PT testing, and then they can't
certainly
pass. At
not.
least they cannot pass me, basically,
Yeah, no, no,
because
no,
I
that's
will be
not.
the one saying, well, you need to go back and do your like finish your product development, please.
Yeah, there's something missing. Something is missing. All right, so we've talked about a lot of interesting things. I don't know if there's anything else, you know what I mean, that you want to add before we kind of start wrapping it up and talking about advice and next steps. Um, but if
Yeah,
not, yeah, go ahead.
I think we can move on. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the last bit that I want to ask you here is just regarding advice, your advice. If you could give
Mhm.
one piece of advice to a new beauty founder or an investor who's new to beauty, most of the people, the clients that I deal with are not from beauty. They don't understand beauty. This is their first time entering, and they don't know what they don't know. Um, so one piece of advice that you want to, share?
Well, these are actually two different categories of advice from me, I would say. For the beauty founder, of course, you are going to start with your brand development, and usually they go into product development. And I would say that if you are ready to go into product development, you have your brand ready, then just take the regulatory consultant with you so that you can ask the right things from the product developer. start with regulatory from like day 2 at least, if you've done your brand development. And for the investors interested in going into beauty business and they know absolutely nothing, uh, well, of course, you meet with the brand and you see whether you like the brand and the potential they have. But if you are going like to think about it's gonna get serious, then also I would suggest you to ask whether the brand has their like either they have internal regulatory teams, which for smaller brands they don't have. So ask about their regulatory consultants and get in contact. And if they don't have regulatory consultants and they already have products, then that's big red flag, big no-no, because it's not possible to launch a product without regulatory work done.
Oh,
That's just
100%.
not how it goes.
100%.
Yeah.
And like I said, as the captain of the ship, the team that I
Mm.
bring would be in this case, we're now going to add you because if we're going into Europe, I need you there from the beginning. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
my regulatory crew, my quality control QC. you know
Yes.
um I also have my own team of auditors so that we can go into the
Mm.
GMP facilities. And you know what, who knows, maybe having someone like you as part of the auditing team, you know what I mean, just to give that perspective from a safety standpoint. I'm saying, you know what you're going to be looking for in your reports, so let's just try to help find the right manufacturer from the beginning. That might be a good idea too. But I bring an entire team. And in the end, my job doesn't end at production, at finished goods. My job ends at post-market surveillance. So that means
Yes.
we're going to continue. The work has to
Mm.
continue because claims are still going to be made. You spoke a lot about
Mm.
claim substantiation. You know what I mean? Claims are still going to be made. People are still going to say things. You know what I mean? You never know what salespeople say about. So we have to keep all of these things on track. The FDA are watching. You know what I mean? They're keeping an eye on, and they're not they are a federal agency. You know what I mean? They are, you know,
Mm.
they have teeth. They can hurt a brand. If they decide to do a recall, they decide to do, yeah. So, you know what I mean? The work doesn't end at the finished goods. So, talking of
Also,
founder, yeah, go
I
ahead.
have one piece of advice also.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, when you either maybe the brand already has some products out there, they have maybe they have CPSR files or product information files with safety data, and either it doesn't matter if you're like the brand owner or an investor. I'm sure you do not understand a thing in that safety report. This is the place to ask from that safety assessor. Please just go through with it with me. Talk it through, like what's written in here. And if that's not possible, find a second opinion to go over the safety report. That's always a good idea to have someone from outside go over, because we are all people. We can make mistakes.
Yes,
These are
indeed.
not the mistakes we want to make, but it's always good idea to have someone from outside look into the reports as well, especially if you are trying to invest like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, 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 no. Listen, no, this is not an inexpensive endeavor. No, nothing about breaking into the beauty. Yes, there's a lot of money to be made in beauty if you do it right. There's also a lot of money
Hmm.
to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If you don't know
yeah.
what you're doing and, you're getting all your advice from ChatGPT. Love you, ChatGPT.
That that's uh,
But please, you're not a formulator, and please stop
no, you
creating the
cannot get
formulas.
safety
It's
data.
no, no.
No, zero
All right.
chemical.
So then the last thing then is one simple step that a founder can take today to strengthen their safety documentation?
From the European perspective, if you already have a safety report done, then it should be okay to go, because there's not like it's safe and safer. It is
Mm,
safe. It must
mm,
be safe.
mm,
There's no such thing as safer.
mhm,
But from the US point of view, where you don't have safety assessors and brands have to gather their own safety data, so yeah, this this depends so much on the actual product and what kind of safety testing you would need to do and what kind of ingredients you have. But I think it comes, I just go back to contact a regulatory person, contact either a toxicologist or a safety assessor before you think you are ready to launch. Yeah.
No, 100%. I agree with you. And
Yeah, thank you for inviting, and I hope you had some like new information,
yes,
and I hope your the listeners or who anybody who's watching had some like new insight into what goes on in Europe, and maybe next time we can talk about the differences.
yes, 100%. Because I think the next time round, I would love to get into, how you see the trends in terms of safety assessment and what that would mean from a MOCRA standpoint. We spoke about Europe obviously because it's there, but my feeling is that MOCRA being so new and just being more robust guidelines right now, um, we're gonna be starting to see some of these more robust regulation coming our way. And I have a
Mm,
feeling that safety assessors are going to start popping up in the US, and I am not
mm,
opposed. I think it's better for everyone, and safety for consumers is always top of mind. So
mm.
with that said, if you found this video valuable, follow me for more expert insights on the issues and answers that drive smarter beauty investment. I'm Melory Johnson. See you all next time.